Okay. Let's begin. The Queen Anne's County Planning Commission meeting comes to order Thursday, June the 8th, 2023. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public comment?
I had none.
You have nothing? Okay, good. Meeting minutes review.
Madam Chair, I move to accept the minutes as written for the May 11, 2023 Planning Commission meeting.
So moved.
You're seconding, right? So
Second,
moved.
yes, sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
So moved.
Extension requests, there are none. Updates, legislation and legal matters.
Good morning.
Morning.
Amy Mordock, Planning Director. I'm going to let Stephanie begin because she has the legal matters and I have a few general updates.
So Stephanie Jones, Principal Planner. Some updates for state regulations that were passed through the General Assembly. One was the forest conservation update. We are still waiting on guidance from the state for that. There is a July 1 deadline for solar, but we are still waiting for their guidance as to how to move forward with that. Also, the recreational marijuana, which was a big bill that went through, that we're still waiting on guidance from the state, but we're also working with MACO in order to figure out how to implement. Armored storage.
Well, you might explain what this is going on with the no burden language.
Right, so there is language in that portion that says that the county can't implement no.
Unduly burden, I think it
Unduly,
is.
yeah. So they can't place a burden basically on somebody that wants to have a recreational or sell recreational marijuana. So where we actually cite those locations or what zoning districts it's permitted in is something that's what the entire state has to grapple with, basically.
Nobody knows what unduly burden means yet.
With respect to siting of these facilities?
And licensing.
Or maybe other site plan standards.
Maybe they'll have a truck, like a food truck.
So hence the guidance we're kind of needing from the state.
Definitely need the guidance.
A lot of towns in particular have, I don't think any counties have done this yet, but a number of towns have adopted moratoria on citing recreational marijuana. I think it's largely symbolic because the licensure for recreational marijuana from the state is not likely to happen until, sometime next year. And that's what triggers the no undue burden requirement. If they get a license, they can't be unduly burdened on citing or whatever else. We're not sure yet. But I don't think any counties have adopted moratoria yet.
Not seen evidence of that at the county level. And that's, MACO has reached out to the Cannabis Commission to establish a couple of meetings to discuss some of the zoning issues that we would like the state to consider as relates the guidance they're going to give back to us.
What's interesting is that this no undue burden applies to recreational marijuana, but doesn't appear to apply to medical marijuana.
I think that to me seems to be connected to the way the licensing was rolled out for medical marijuana because it was limited and there were limited numbers of licenses issued in different regions, and the growing licenses and then the processing and selling licenses were all separated. And this retail license for recreational seems to be one license, and I'm not sure as to what limitations there will be at the commission level for how many may be issued per jurisdiction. So to me, that seems to be the difference, and all of the social equity issues that follow the number of licenses that might be issued, and the reaction from local jurisdictions when the legislation was introduced. A lot of jurisdictions immediately noted that they weren't going to adopt any regulations for recreational marijuana. So the reaction to that was this undue burden to make sure that certain jurisdictions weren't going to reject the use.
Medical marijuana dispensaries can be essentially, grandfathered isn't the right word, but they don't have to do much to get a recreational marijuana dispensary license. But there aren't any in Queen Anne's County, so we don't have to worry about that right now. There's one in Centerville.
All right, on to the next item, armored storage. If you all remember that self-storage facility that you reviewed for growth allocation, and the commissioners sent, it was conceptually approved by the commissioners. It went to the Critical Area Commission yesterday. How their meetings are held, they have a subcommittee, and then the subcommittee recommends it to the overall committee, or the commission rather. Critical Area Commission staff gave it a favorable approval with conditions that included doing mitigation for 1-to-1 for the trees that they're going to be removing for that project. But once it got to the overall commission, the chair decided to hold the decision for 10 days, which he legally can do. So what he can decide, he can deny it, he can approve it, he can approve with conditions, or he can send it back to the county. So it's just a waiting game as to what we'll hear back on that growth allocation application. I think some of the issues were basically the stormwater being in the floodplain, the building in the floodplain. I think that was the overall arching issues.
Oh, that was addressed, correct?
Yep, all those items were addressed with the site plan review and with DPW. And
And it was all satisfactory? Okay.
Yep. And then the last item I have is the update to our zoning code. As obviously we finished our comp plan, so the next step is to update the zoning code. We have started that, and Chris is going to get us through that process. You won't have any additional meetings. They'll always be just reviewing, basically during your regular meetings like we did for the comp plan. And hopefully next month you should see the first chapter. So that should come before you next month then.
Okay.
Oh, yes, Chapter 14, sorry, critical area. I'm working with the staff at the critical area. We're probably, I've got about half of the section to them for review. We have a meeting next week to hopefully go through those sections that they have for review, and then hopefully by the end of the summer, we can get it it'll come before you, obviously. It's a total update, so there'll be a lot of changes to that chapter just because it hasn't been updated in such a long time.
Okay.
Final one on the legal side. You recall I think it's 11-lot subdivision behind the Legion on Roman Coke Road, or Route 8, that runs through Bay City?
Uh-huh.
And there was a controversy, opposition from the Bay City Homeowners Association saying that the property where the subdivision is did not touch the public road, which is Victoria Drive, but intersected instead with a private road called Stafford Road. Well, that ended up in the circuit court, and the county's position prevailed in the circuit court, which is that Victoria Drive ends at the property line so that the sub-lots can access the public road, and now that's been appealed by Bay City.
They have filed an appeal to that
Yeah, I'm
decision?
pretty sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. That subdivision, which is officially called Place, the applicant is working to move forward with this board to continue its review. They had intended to be on today's agenda, but had a few hiccups with their plat unrelated to the legal matter of the road
If
access.
it's tied up in legal matter, do
No,
we
there's
even
no
get involved
stay.
anymore?
There's no stay.
No?
The stay that you're referring to applies when a planning commission decision or planning and zoning decision is appealed to the Board of Appeals,
Oh,
not to circuit court.
okay.
The applicant is proceeding at his own risk. If there should be an unfavorable decision at that level,
Correct.
then the decisions made here, which are just going to be based on our code, not on those legal matters, then they would potentially have to start over. So,
Okay.
thanks for bringing that up, because we've received a lot of questions from residents in the neighborhood and residents who are involved in that litigation, questioning the status, because initially that item was going to be on this agenda, but like I mentioned, they weren't as ready as they thought that they were, and we had to pull it, so there was some confusion as to the status of that review. So we've had a lot of questions, so now if anyone is listening who is engaged in that project, they have a good update. A few things that we're working on. I had mentioned to you that the county is engaged with the Baltimore, where is it? With the Baltimore Metropolitan Council to submit a grant application to the EPA. It was due on the 30th of May, or the 31st of May. We submitted on the 30th, and that is a climate pollution reduction grant. And that means that we will be engaged in a greenhouse gas emissions plan for our entire region. It's large, like as I mentioned before, it's largely based in an urban setting, but there will be an opportunity for us to provide feedback and input on those actionable items, because obviously implementation on the Eastern Shore will be a little different. So we'll be engaged in that process. It is a non-competitive grant, so we expect to get the grant, but we won't hear until July or August. And they initially said we wouldn't hear until the fall, but I think EPA is making their decision sooner.
Will the counties be taking, this county be taken halfway seriously in the council, do you think?
Of course.
I mean, it seems to me if we have to go to the emission station in Graysonville, as we do, we should be involved in such a thing.
Correct.
Halfway seriously.
Huh?
Only halfway seriously.
How much money are you talking about?
The grant to implement this planning effort, the budget, and this is a,
Yeah, this was only a planning grant for this portion of it.
this is a 4-year planning exercise. And the budget was just under 1 million for the planning,
For the county or for the entire
for the
area?
entire region.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have a clue yet how much you may get out?
Well, this goes to the council.
Yeah, this goes to the council. We're just a partner in the Baltimore.
So that means we get $0.
Yeah, we're not getting any funding for this. We're getting planning
We'll get
funding
something
to
out of it, just won't get
generate a
money.
plan.
What does it mean to be what does planning mean in this context?
The planning document will be a regional greenhouse gas emission implementation plan.
Okay.
So it's vital that we are engaged, because there are going to be some thresholds that are applicable in an urban setting that we won't be able to reach, because we don't have control over the same number of factors. So,
I wonder if the council will consider circumstances such as we're presently experiencing. Probably not.
we're also engaged in the Bay Crossing study, Tier 2 NEPA study, which is the next phase of the environmental study. Queen Anne's County is a participating agency, so we're not a coordinating agency, which is a little different. There's some stronger standing there, but the counties are not coordinating agencies. We're all participating. That means that we have a seat at the table and we are reviewing documents and advising. So when we agreed to be a participating agency, and I'm working with Steve Cahoon on this, his comment to the team at MDOT was, please accelerate this process, which is something that we traditionally, that is our comment in our annual transportation priorities letter is, let's move forward with this because we're so severely impacted by any delay. So what we're working on now, and we've really only had a few meetings so far, but we will be reviewing study methodologies at present. So there's a noise study, an indirect impact study, and a study on the impacts on cultural resources. But we're not reviewing the studies yet. We're reviewing the methodologies of the studies to make sure that we are in agreement that they're covering enough of the region or enough of the significant issues. So right now, we're commenting on a study on the study. But it's important to be at the table, and we are. Also, just as an FYI, there's some floodplain training that this office has been engaged in. We've done a realtor training on floodplain practices that was associated with Floodplain Awareness Month, which was last month. But also this month, Vivian Swenson, our zoning administrator, has worked with our FEMA Region 3 floodplain coordinator to schedule a training here in this room on the 20th of June. And this training will be for contractors and professionals to learn about building code requirements and other floodplain requirements. So in conjunction with our initiatives to create that awareness and education, and also to educate on sea level rise and its impact on floodplain inundation, just to let you know we're staying engaged and trying to stay ahead of the curve there and to train all of our citizens and professionals who work in the area. And finally, just to note that is it the 40th annual? I think it's the 40th annual Maryland Planning Commission Association will hold its annual conference here in Queen Anne's County this year, and that is going to be held on the 24th through the 26th of October. So it's an honor that our county has been selected to hold this conference, and our Planning Commission chair will be a featured and honorary speaker at this conference to represent this board and to represent the county. Commissioner Jim Moran will also be asked to address the group as our county commissioner liaison. So we are engaged. We're working with our tourism director, Heather Tonelli, to establish a tour for all participants to tour key planning sites and key amenities within the county to showcase Queen Anne's County. And as we get closer, we're still planning, but as we get closer, we'll make sure that you all have invitations. And it would be great if everyone on this board and our Board of Appeals could plan to attend and represent the county.
Where is it going to be held?
It will be held at the former Kent Manor Inn, which has a new name now. Kent Island Resort is where it will be held this year.
Is it October 24, 26?
Yes. Yep. And more to come on that, but okay. And staff has some significant updates to share with you, so Stephanie and I will get out of the way.
Good morning. My name's Rob Tracy. I'm a senior planner, and to my right is Doug Summers. We're here today to present the annual report, which is required by state law each year. It gives insights into development within the county. I'm here today to seek your approval of that report so that we may send it to the state for their acceptance. Within the annual report, there's the development. So this year we saw agricultural preservation increase, which is consistent with our comprehensive plan. And we also saw residential permit activity remain steady within the growth area, and we saw a decrease of permit volume outside of the growth area, which is consistent with our comprehensive plan. The second part of the annual report is something that is related to our comprehensive plan, which was adopted May 24th. So in the excuse me, in the implementation section of the comprehensive plan, it states that each year we should be providing a report in the annual report regarding the prioritization of strategies of the comprehensive plan. So in the appendix of my report, or excuse me, in our report, we have created a one-page summary that goes through those findings. And I'd like to take a moment to thank Doug Summers and Tyler Pease from our GIS department for their participation and assistance with.
GIS being,
GIS is Geographic Information Systems.
right, okay.
And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. If not,
Questions?
I just ask for a motion to accept the report so that we may send it
Okay.
to the state.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Chairman Dobson.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to make one comment and to acknowledge and thank the planning team and our GIS team for their assistance. This implementation chart is kind of unprecedented. I don't know that there are other jurisdictions who have committed to doing such an elaborate and clearly defined implementation update of its comprehensive plan annually. It was something that the community has asked for, and the community often asks for that. It's like, okay, we've spent all this time on the comp plan, now what are you doing to implement it? So the fact that, and it was very difficult to figure out how to organize it because there are so many recommendations that fall under the strategies. So it's taken a lot of work to put it together in such a way that it is quantifiable and easily reported. So what you see right now we think is pretty good. It might be tweaked over time because what we also are committing to doing, and our partners as well, is bringing that technical team together that worked on the comp plan, because it isn't just this organization that is responsible for implementing the plan. It's every agency and even state agencies in the county have signed up to their commitment to implementing these strategies. So we're going to meet as a committee on a regular basis to check in on these prioritized strategies, and we will be able to report out that we are actually implementing and committed to the comprehensive plan that the community spent so much time helping us to.
How often are they going to meet?
We're not sure yet. We were thinking about quarterly. Was that right? I don't think we've worked that all out yet. This is all new.
So I think we would be doing this yearly, right, with the annual report. So you'll see this again next year. Because the comprehensive plan is so new, we wanted to emphasize, and I forgot to mention this, we want to emphasize that this information is really illustrative at this point. I think as we continue to do this yearly, we'll start to be able to make, it will lend itself to a year-on-year analysis, but I think at this point it's more illustrative, and it's something that our comprehensive plan has identified, and we want to be consistent with that, as Amy has mentioned.
I mean, but the technical committee will meet more frequently.
I
Yeah.
apologize. Yeah, I think that's something that we would have to work out.
We were talking about perhaps quarterly, but we're not sure. We're just I don't want to overcommit the members of the committee.
So next time, we won't be seeing ongoing on almost everything, right?
Right.
We'll
I
see
mean, there'll be a
some
lot,
things
a
will-
lot of things will be ongoing and always ongoing, but there will,
But some will have an update and say it's
What are the, what
implemented or
what
it's gonna be
categories
implemented
are you
by.
thinking about beyond ongoing and long-term?
So I can answer that question. So what we did is we created 4 categories. So we have an immediate, which is really occurring or done at once. Intermediate, which is being or occurring at a time or relating to like a middle stage. And then we have long-term, which is occurring or relating to a long period of time. And then we have ongoing, which is continuing. It's our thought that in the future analysis, this category will be a completed category will be added. We're currently in the process of updating our Chapter 18 subdivision and regulation code, as well as Chapter 14, which is the critical area side. So it's likely that with those updates, as well as just additional time, as the comprehensive plan was adopted in May of late May, we just haven't had a lot of time to really implement those strategies. So in the future, I think we'll really start seeing ongoing kind of moving to a completed stage.
All right, that's good.
Amy, just a policy question or procedural question maybe. Is the GIS an arm of planning and zoning, or do they work for other departments as well?
GIS is an arm of the IT department, and I don't want to let Tyler, since he graciously attended the meeting today, why don't we let him answer your question? I'll stay here.
So I'm Tyler Pease. I'm a GIS specialist. So we are an arm of the IT department. So we service all county departments. But, planning and zoning is probably one of our heavy users, so we do a lot for them.
It's very helpful, certainly. Some of the new technologies that have been brought to us to help us see things from aerial perspectives that we otherwise wouldn't have an appreciation for. So,
Yeah.
good to know. Thank you.
And their expertise, I mean, obviously you see the end result in a mapping exercise, but their interpretation and manipulation of data is just invaluable, and their historical knowledge of the county zoning and land uses, just that connection and the resource for our planning department is immense. So they're integral into a lot of our data analysis and a lot of our planning efforts. So.
I'm curious, does the state advise or require a sort of a template for all counties to use for their property viewers? Because they seem to be very similar.
So, no, there is no reference from the state. I think a lot of times, we work intimately with our regional counterparts. So it's a lot of just kind of exchanging information. We meet kind of quarterly as GIS professionals with just kind of our regional groups and share and exchange ideas. So I think a lot of that is a function of that kind of meeting and sharing of information.
It's useful that that each county all the counties are relatively uniform. So you don't have to, you go to, Frederick County, and you don't have to figure out a new system
Right.
on the property viewer.
So I feel that the Queen Anne's County property viewer is superior.
What's that?
I feel that our property viewer is superior. There's just so much information there.
By comparison to, for example, Caroline County, which is virtually non-existent?
Right. Yeah. Well, we try hard. We try hard to give the best information we can and the most information we can.
Kent County's not a whole lot better, but a little bit better.
Wasn't my intention to besmirch any of the other. I just think ours is
I'll
the
do it.
best.
And you didn't, just for the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Amy?
That's everything.
Okay. Projects. Graysonville Volunteer Fire Department.
Good morning. I'm Steve Johnson with Planning and Zoning. I guess it's fitting we're reviewing this project considering the outside conditions. So, as Ms. Dobson stated, we're here to discuss project number SP 23-03-0102 for Graysonville Volunteer Fire Department, who is proposing to administratively combine two parcels to construct a new 18,000 square foot fire station and a 4,072 square foot storage building. And they are requesting major site plan approval. This slide gives you a little bit of a general location where the project's located. As you can see, it's right downtown in Graysonville. More specifically, tax map 58H parcels 135 and 136 total 2.081 acres and are located at 4128 Main Street, Graysonville. As part of this development proposal, the applicant will administratively combine both parcels to create resulting parcel 136. This administrative subdivision would have to be recorded prior to any final signatures on the site plan. The properties are zoned Graysonville Village Commercial and Neighborhood Conservation 8T and are located in the Graysonville growth area. All of the proposed development is within the GVC zoning district, which is the red that you see on the screen, and public services are a permitted use within that zoning district. Here's an existing, a look at the existing building. Another view looking southwest. Here's another view looking southeast. I do want to note that all the improvements that you see here, with the exception of the storage building in the rear, will be removed. That includes the fire station and the two sheds on the right. Here's a look at the site plan. The new fire station is the large rectangle at the center of your screen. The proposed storage building is to the right, and the existing storage building that you saw in the previous picture is to the bottom middle of the screen. All GVC zoning district development standards are met. This includes height, setbacks, floor area, impervious. The property is served by public water and sewer. They have provided 10 more parking spaces than are required. I'd like to note that all of the apparatus will be parked inside the engine bays with the exception of one vehicle. Applicant is currently working on finalizing their site lighting plan. Preliminary info submitted to our office indicates that requirements will be met, but they will have to provide a final site lighting plan prior to any final signature of this site plan. A public service waiver was granted by the county administrator on March 21st of this year. This provided relief from buffer yard requirements due to site constraints. This was only utilized in the street buffer where the green arrow is pointed, where 2 understory trees were utilized in lieu of a canopy tree. This is due to overhead electric lines. The trees were also slightly bumped outside of the buffer. The project is located entirely within the critical area. 2.026 acres are located in the IDA. The designation, critical area designation line is the red line you see on your screen. Everything to the north and west, or excuse me, north and east of that line is the IDA. 0.055 acres are in the LDA. That's everything to the kind of the south and west of that red line that you see. The critical area afforestation requirement has been met by the buffer yard plantings within the LDA, and that's all the little circles that you see there on your screen, kind of in that little triangular piece of the property behind the critical area line. This parcel is not located within the 100-year floodplain. There are no natural resources, steep slopes, or threatened endangered species on site. DPW has reviewed the stormwater for the property and approved it. The features are shown here, outlined in orange. This is how the proposed development would fit in with the surrounding area. Here's a look at the rendering for the front of the building. This is another look at the front. This is the side of the building looking towards the east, so it's the west-facing side of the building. Here's a rendering of the side of the building looking west. This is east facing. Here's the rear. This is a rendering of the proposed storage building. And this is what their electronic sign out front may look like. And with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant or answer any questions you may have.
Good
Any
morning.
questions for Steve?
Go ahead.
My name's Tom Davis with DMS and Associates. We were hired by the Graysonville Volunteer Fire Department to develop the plans and work with them with their builder. This is Tom Sheehan. He's the chairman of the building committee.
I say good morning.
Sorry. So we've been working with staff for a couple months now. The proposal for this is to build the building in the back, the black and white storage building, initially, so that they can move their equipment out, store that temporarily in that building, get that building built, and then demolish the existing firehouse and begin construction on the larger facility. They just run out of space. They're in a growth area. They need a lot more space to house their equipment. Their existing facility is probably 60 years old. It's outdated with respect to being able to have meetings in there. There's not enough space for those kind of things. So this building, the eastern part of the building will be all the engine bays, and then they have their administrative offices, a meeting room, a small kitchen. They do a lot of fundraisers. As was seen in the picture, they have a spaghetti dinner coming up, or was probably already passed now, right?
Yeah, third week of every month.
The building-wise, the intent was to create the brick front just like the existing building is, and then they ran the brick water table down each side of it. The current building is brick on the front, but concrete blocks on each end, so it's a larger building, but we think the architecture is consistent with what's there and, exceeds, what's there. And I have some pictures here, but as you come down Route 18 east and west, this building sits so far back, you really can't see the sides of the building because of the ambulance building, and then there's a residential structure. So you really, unless you're standing beside it, you really can't see the sides of the building. So although there's a lot of, space there that just has windows, we think it's compliant with the GVC design guidelines, given the location of the building. We didn't do any architectural treatments on the storage building because, again, it's back behind the ambulance building, and you'll very rarely see it unless you look at, if you're riding down the road, you look down the alleys on either side of the building. So we've been working with the utility department, sanitary district, the fire marshal, stormwater management, DPW, and the critical areas, and they've all supported our proposal for this project. So we're asking for site plan approval with conditions, the conditions being mostly administrative things. The property, as Steve indicated, is 2 parcels of record. We've already been through one review of our administrative subdivision plat. We'll get that recorded, and that would be a condition of approval as well. So I don't know if, Tom, you want to add anything to what I've said?
Yeah, I think.
Operational-wise, we have the Chief Jason Anthony, and some other members, if you have any questions about the operations of what they do and number of service calls and that kind of thing.
Madam Chair.
You have any questions?
So, living in your service area, so my question is, just to confirm what you said, so your operations will continue to run even during the building, so
Yes.
you'll operate out of that
Yes, so
storage?
they also own the ambulance, they call it the ambulance
Right,
building,
building, yeah,
but
right.
they'll house some of their equipment in that temporarily. The intent is to build the storage building, the storage building, we're calling it, which is the ultimate use, is being built on what's already existing gravel. So they can almost immediately start that. It's gonna be a pole building, so it should be able to go up quick. And then they'll move their main equipment in there. Some of the equipment will be stored outdoors, as I understand it. You guys take it from here, because.
Yeah, so none of the equipment will be stored outdoors, so the intent is to have zero lack of, being able to serve the community, just as we do every day now. So we will move all of our administrative services into the ambulance department. and run out of that building along with the new existing storage building in the back housing our larger apparatus.
Okay.
And we've worked with him, our builders, to make sure that there will be no issues with that.
Thank you.
So we're working to sequence it, because as you see, the building takes up the bulk of the frontage of the property, and we have a travel lane on either side. So we've been having many discussions with the builder on making sure that we have ingress, egress to be able to get the equipment in and out while the new building is being constructed.
Thank you.
One question about parking, and I noticed that, you certainly have in excess of the requirement, but are you comfortable if you get a call in the middle of a spaghetti dinner that you've got enough place to park everybody who tries to get to the station?
Yes, so we're exceeding probably what we have parking-wise now. And our spaghetti dinners and our dinners are drive-through service, so nobody's ever there, so yes, sir.
A question about that little bump out on the storage. Is that special equipment storage or hazmat? Why is there that little,
So
to
that
the,
area.
to the north there?
Yeah, so that was to store a generator in there, yes.
And we're still working with the designers of the building to determine if that's even needed, because we have a large pad in the back that would house a generator pad. So
Just looked out of place. I was curious as to what it was housing.
they have an existing generator that they were maybe going to use, but we're still, again, working through the details with the MEP consultants on whether they need a whole new generator or whether they can use the existing, so.
Any more questions? Can I get a resolution?
Madam Chair, be it resolved that the planning,
One second.
I'm sorry.
I don't think,
Oh, public comment. Always forget public comment. There being none, go ahead.
Be it resolved that the Planning Commission regarding the request by Graysonville Volunteer Fire Department, Inc. for major site approval for a new 18,000 square foot fire station and a 4,072 square foot storage building, and as more particularly described in Department of Planning and Zoning File SP number 23-03-0102, hereby finds this major site plan does meet all requirements of Chapter 18, will not substantially increase traffic hazards or safety concerns due to traffic generated by the proposed use, the location or orientation of curb cuts, or the layout of internal circulation, does contain a layout of buildings, parking, roads, and utilities that does not substantially increase fire, health, or other public safety hazards, is adequately buffered and screened to minimize potential adverse impacts to neighboring properties and public rights-of-way, will not substantially increase stormwater drainage or pollution, will not have an unreasonably adverse effect upon property values in the vicinity of the site, will not adversely affect the public welfare, and will provide for public safety through compliance with the state fire code and with any applicable county or municipal fire codes, is compatible with the general character of the surrounding neighborhood, and is consistent with the purpose, goals, and objectives of the 2022 Comprehensive Plan, and hereby grants major site approval subject to the following conditions: any remaining edits and/or documents required by a reviewing agency, the Department of Public Works, or Planning and Zoning be reviewed and approved. The architecture, lighting, and overall site design must substantially reflect the documents provided. The applicant must submit a final site lighting plan that demonstrates compliance with 185.c prior to obtaining final signatures. The administrative subdivision must be approved and recorded prior to obtaining final signatures. Any required legal documents must be approved, signed, and recorded prior to obtaining final signatures. All required bonds, sureties, review, and inspection fees must be submitted to the Department of Public Works and the Department of Planning and Zoning as appropriate, and all required signatures must be obtained.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So be it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
You're welcome. Okay, public comment for any reason, then I would entertain my favorite motion. If I can get one. Hello?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.